Amak merat ike tesolderat ik merut. In the first 3 videos in this series, we took a look at 3 different argument forms, as well as taking a look at where those argument forms can go wrong, which is related to this video. In this video, we will take a look at the idea of valid and sound in logic, and by extension, invalid and unsound. People will often get these two mixed up or backwards. If you do, then don't be too hard on yourself. When I first started studying logic, I got these two mixed up and backwards also. When we think of something like a bus ticket, we think of it being valid when it is acceptable and usable, which to some degree is also what we mean when we speak of an argument being valid as well. When we speak of an argument being valid, what is meant is that the structure of the argument is valid, meaning that it is arranged in such a way that the inferences follow from premise to conclusion. If the structure is arranged properly and all of the inferences follow correctly, then this guarantees that the conclusion correctly follows from the premises. In effect, the structure being correct and the inferences following properly ensures the truth of the conclusion. At least the truth of the conclusion as deduced from the premises anyway. And we'll speak more on this in a bit. Let's take a look at an example of an argument form you'll already be familiar with from other videos in this playlist. We'll use modus ponens here. If you recall, modus ponens was of the form if P then Q, P therefore Q. This would be considered a valid argument. Thinking back to the video on modus ponens, the reasoning took the following form. We have the conditional statement if P then Q, and what this is saying is that if proposition P is true, then it will follow that Q will also be true. The proposition Q is inferred by proposition P. An example we used previously was, if it is raining, then the ground is wet. If P then Q. In this particular argument, the first premise is stating that if it is true that it is raining, then it is also true that the ground is wet. The fact that the ground is wet follows from the fact that it is raining. If P is true, then Q is also true. So P, or it is raining, infers that Q, the ground is wet, is true. The second premise affirms that P, or it is raining, is true. As the second premise affirms that P, or it is raining, is true, then this also infers the conclusion Q, or the ground is wet, is true. After all, if it follows that Q is true if P is true, and P is true, then we can conclude that Q is also true. And so, if P, it is raining, then Q, the ground is wet. P, it is raining, therefore Q, the ground is wet. This argument preserves the inference flow, and therefore the conclusion must follow from the premises. It is impossible for both premises to be true without the conclusion also being true, meaning that the argument is valid. An argument is valid if, and only if, the premises preserve the inferences through to the conclusion and guarantee the conclusion. P infers Q, so Q follows from P. P is true, so therefore we can conclude that Q is true. To see this in action in another way, we can think back to the Socrates is mortal video also. In that video, we looked at the form, all A's are C, B is an A, therefore B is a C. In that video, we saw that this argument uses inferences based on distributed terms. The term A refers to a complete set of some objects, say men. Everything that is an A is also included in the full set that term C describes. So the set of all things that could be considered C. The common example usually used here is mortal, meaning that everything that is included in the set of all things men is also included in the set of all things mortal. If we remember, it doesn't work the other way around. Not everything in the set of all things mortal is included in the set of all things men. A is a subset of C, not the other way around. The second premise tells us that the individual object we're discussing in the argument is a member of set A. The common example given is Socrates. Socrates is included in the set of all men through the declaration Socrates is a man. So the second premise infers that Socrates, or B, belongs to the set of all men, or A. From this we we can infer that Socrates is also a member of set C, or all things mortal. After all, if everything in set A, or all men, belongs in set C, or all things that are mortal, and Socrates belongs in set A, then Socrates must also be a member of set C. Another way we can look at it is this: A equals C, B equals A, therefore B equals C. Let's look at another example, one that we often find atheists and skeptics on social media arguing is not a valid argument. All things that begin to exist have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. We can see in this that the first premise takes the form all A's are C's. In this argument, the term A is referring to the set of all things that begin to exist. Term C refers to the set of all things that have a cause. The argument places the subset all things that begin to exist in the set of all things that have a cause, or A equals C. The second premise places the universe in set A, so B equals A. From this, it is inferred that the universe also belongs in the set of all things that have a cause, or B equals C. You will have recognized the argument as the standard form of the kalam, meaning that the kalam follows the form A equals C, B equals A, therefore B equals C. And this preserves all the inferences, and the conclusion correctly follows from the inferences. And the conclusion cannot fail to be true if all the premises are true, which, as we saw earlier, is what it means for an argument to be valid, meaning that the kalam is a valid argument, at least if we're speaking about it in terms of logic anyway. I know that many will say here, but maybe the universe doesn't have a beginning, or there could be things that begin to exist without a cause. And I would agree. There are some very good counter-arguments to the kalam, especially the second premise. However, none of these arguments would change the fact that the kalam is a valid argument, at least logically speaking. An argument is only invalid if the structure of the argument is such that the inferences do not follow correctly to the conclusion, and do not guarantee that if the premises are true, then the conclusion is true. Validity refers to the structure of the argument, not the truth of the premises and the conclusion. What these counter-arguments do is question the soundness of an argument. An argument can be valid, but not sound. But an argument can never be sound but not valid. One of the necessary conditions for soundness is that the argument is valid. The other is that the premises are all true. So an argument is sound if and only if all the premises are true and the argument is valid. Of course, all the premises in an argument could be true and we do not know it. All the premises in the kalam could be true and the argument could be sound. We simply do not have enough warrant to be able to claim them definitively as true or definitively as false. The best we can go on is what we have epistemic warrant to believe. Or to put it in simpler terms, the best we can go on is whether we have good reasons to believe or doubt the individual premises. If we have good reason to doubt the premises, then we have good reason to doubt its soundness. Anyway, there we have it. That's a quick rundown on what it means for an argument to be valid and sound. To put it simply, an argument is valid if it is truth-preserving, meaning that the structure of the argument is such that it preserves the flow of the inferences and guarantees the truth of the conclusion. An argument that cannot fail to be true if all the premises are true is a valid argument. And a sound argument is an argument that is valid and all the premises are true. Thanks for tuning into another one of my videos in the Brief Beginner's Guide to Logic. I hope this helped make the ideas of validity and soundness easier to understand. See you next time. Take care.